All right.
And I'm going to go live. And I'm going to watch for the whirly whirly. Oh, I got to watch the whirly whirly over here. I should be watching the whirly whirly over here. So I'm not staring away from the screen, but that's all right. Setting up the webinar and we're going live. 11. We're good to go. Got it. Hey, you're on Lunch Conversations with Randy and Teddy. And for those who don't know, I'm Teddy and Randy is the other guy with the shiny. Well, Randy is one of the guys on the screen with the shiny head. We'll tell you about Kenneth in a little bit. Lunch Conversations with Randy and Teddy is sponsored in part by the Elder Law Firm. We love having them be a part of our team and helping us make this show grow. If you are supporting and caring for people who have elder law needs, estate planning needs, elder care planning needs, trust needs, something I learned the other day about the Elder Law Firm, reach out to them in Greensboro, North Carolina, 336-396-4551, and you must tell them that Randy sent you. Boom. I think I clicked it right, Randy.
Good deal. And I found us live on LinkedIn, and I'm about to hit share right now.
117 times practicing, dude. I'm getting a little bit better at it, huh?
Yeah. Awesome. Hey, Randy Wooden, Goodwill Industries, Northwest North Carolina. I'm the director for our professional center. So, yeah, Goodwill helps professionals, at least here in Winston-Salem we do. And I've got clients across the country. So if you are maybe somebody you know that could be in a job search, have them find me. I'm not that hard to find and happy to help. So we work by appointment, reach out and get you on the calendar, try to help. But I love to get together every Wednesday with my friend Teddy Burriss. We try to bring topics of interest to professionals, to include this one. And I'll tell you, this is going to be a good one because I think we all know introverts, and we'll get to know some real tips that can help folks who might maybe not exactly, let's say, relish the whole networking and the whole interviewing process, because and I deal with a lot of introverts, and so these will be great tips for me to be able to share. I'll have to co-opt. I'll have to take good notes today, Teddy. So I'll be doing that.
Good,
let's throw it back to you and get this thing started.
So Randy will monitor the chat.
Yep.
So if anybody wants to engage in a conversation with Kenneth Lang, who I'll introduce in a minute, or myself, please engage with me, or Randy if you have to. Use the chat box, and he'll bring your conversation, your point, your question up to the group. For those who've never met me, I teach LinkedIn as a business tool. I'm also a Google Workspace strategist, teaching Google Workplace's business tools. Burriss Consulting has been around since 2009, legally since around 2010, and love helping business professionals who want to use LinkedIn or Google Workplace's business tools. But every week, Randy and I get together and we cause a little havoc, we make a little noise, but most importantly, we bring what we refer to as our special guests, who are highly vetted. And Kenneth made the cut, even though he's not a
Patriots fan.
New England Patriots fan. Yeah, but that's okay. We'll still let him hang out with us. Kenneth has a business, My Networking Central. It's a single place for people to go to search for events, for networking events, and for speakers. Kenneth's also one of my peers in the LinkedIn space. Super LinkedIn, smart guy, helping people. Kenneth, would you introduce yourself to the audience, please?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Kenneth Lang. I appreciate the opportunity to chat here with you guys. In addition to My Networking Central, I do one-on-one LinkedIn training, but what I love to do is pay it forward, because I also do some career coaching for 45 and older here in New Jersey, which is challenging for them. But I also do that with college students. I'm a mentor at a local university. And what I have found is that both age groups have different, while they're different levels of engagement and experience, they have the same issues in job search. With people who are in transition at our age, they're overqualified, and people just starting out are underqualified. So they come up with the same types of roadblocks in different ways. So someone like myself, who's been through the process, unfortunately, can definitely relate. So that's.
Hey, I always ask the why question, Kenneth. You're passionate about what you do. You give back to youth and help out in the community, paying it forward. This didn't happen by accident, I assume. So it's purposeful. I can tell you're passionate about this. What's your why?
My why is because no one helped me, to be honest. I was out of work for 2 years, and I did what I could on my own. Went to websites. I did the whole Monster and Career Builder apply for jobs thing, and got very frustrated, and I actually just, as an introvert, I really didn't know where to go and how to ask. So as I started getting out of my introvert shell, I started realizing, I'm not the only one. So if I could bring what I have to other people, it'll make them feel better about themselves, and it makes me feel better, because I don't like to see people going through things that they don't have to go through alone.
That makes sense. Well, I'm glad you're here. I'll monitor the chat box. If people have questions, I'll try to work them in if they're relevant and so forth. So I'll turn it over to the soon-to-be birthday boy. Teddy Burriss is having a birthday coming up. We won't divulge his to-be age.
No.
I don't think. Should we?
Not yet. Not yet.
We
We'll
don't want to
wait
do that
until next week, and we'll talk about it next week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, my friend.
All right,
Early.
buddy. Thanks, man. Thanks. So Kenneth, you and I chatted, and the conversation was originally, and it still needs to stay relevant to this, focus on tips for introverts in job search. And I'm hoping, and I kind of sort of believe, that these tips may be relevant to others as well, not just in job search, because we got business professionals on here. Let me look at the list again. Yeah. I'm looking at the list. At least a couple thousand out of the 14,000 are on here are business professionals. And I would imagine that they may actually be introverts, some of them as well, and may get some value from these tips. But before we talk about, some ideas they can use to become better at living a life as an introvert, what the heck is an introvert?
I would categorize it this way. Introverts are used to say shy, used to say not really sure what the right time is to say something. You may be very focused and very writing stuff down and double checking and triple checking and being afraid of saying the wrong thing. It's basically, it's the way you are. Like Teddy, you are an extrovert for sure. I'm an introvert. And I think the challenge is thinking about who you are and accepting that that's the person you are. I mean, before these calls, I think about how I'm going to act, what I'm going to say, what I'm going to do, and I write stuff down. And sometimes before I even answer a question, I'm thinking to myself, is this a good answer? Is this a bad answer? What happens if you don't like the answer? So it's just the way we all are. It's just acknowledging that's who you are.
Yeah, I get that. Now, but you're right. I sometimes refer to myself as a noisy Yankee out of place down here in the South. And but I have those same tendencies, Kenneth, to challenge myself before I say something and make sure I'm not saying something that's stupid. Now, Randy may satirically go, well, you need to do it a little more often, Teddy. But, I think that there are I think that there are introvert tendencies that I have, even though I have no problems walking up to a complete stranger and striking up a conversation.
I think also you can be an introvert here online or on LinkedIn and be very extroverted in your whole family because you know them.
Yeah.
You know them, you feel comfortable, or maybe your best friend. But when you're talking to someone you've never met before and you're not sure, there's a lot of self-doubt. And what I found surprising is a lot of the people who I thought were extroverted are really introverted. And we either put on a good show or a good act, or we're just being genuine. You strike me as being an extrovert, as do others, but I have extroverted tendencies for sure. I definitely can be that way, but I have to be in my comfort zone. And my comfort zone is not necessarily doing this, but I get out of it and get out of my comfort zone exactly by doing this. You don't know until you try something. You can't fear something that really is not going to be that bad.
Yeah. I'm just kind of curious. Can we coach ourselves away from being an introvert, and that's whether it's self-talk or other things that maybe you've encountered, to say, hey, look, you know what? I can get out of my comfort zone a whole lot easier now because I have learned to do X, Y, and Z. Is there a formula to get to be the next Teddy Burriss of the world? Or what?
I don't know.
I don't know. Just ask.
Actually replace him, but I think you do it in baby steps. You start by doing it as one person at a time, one place at a time.
Okay.
And what you don't want to do is you don't want to go back and say coulda, woulda, shoulda that stuff. You just take everything you do for what it's worth. I mean, I think the biggest challenge I had is when I would make a mistake or a misstep, I'd beat myself up.
Mm.
And that's, again, there's different levels of all of this. I'm an introvert when it comes to some things, other things I'm not. This is really difficult the first time you do this, but now I love doing LinkedIn Lives and I love doing these streaming things because I'm comfortable with it, but it didn't happen overnight.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. I often remind myself that you've got to experience stuff. I mean, we know what's the old adage to have a bucket of goals or whatever. What's it called as a term for it?
Bucket list.
Bucket list.
Bucket of lists. And I think that the more you experience the kinds of wild things that we put in our bucket of lists, the easier it is to put more wild things in our bucket of list. My point is, the more you experiment, the more you practice, the more you discover, wow, that really wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
I think also with the pandemic, it gave, as introverts, we felt a certain level of, we didn't mind so much being alone at times as much. It was something we could relate to. And what I found was helpful for me was being on LinkedIn. I could be an introvert and still do things and not worry about some of the perceptions because no one was actually going to see me there and no one actually knew me. It's not that I liked the pandemic so much because of all the stuff we went through, but I was able to handle it in a different way than people who are so used to going out and entertaining and going places and doing things. And now all of a sudden you can't do them. So I think it might have been more of an adjustment for them. Now, what do you think, Teddy? You're more of an extrovert. How did you feel about?
So for me, and this is why Randy and I started this show. I was dying. I mean, I'm like, somebody who knew me when I started my business, they said, Teddy, you need to become a public speaker. You need to be a trainer. You need to be run seminars, webinars, because you always need an audience. You ask my wife, she'll say the best thing that happened for me is that we have 12 grandkids. I now have an audience that's developing, and eventually they'll go away. They won't be my audience. And I'm going to need to have great grandkids. But so for me, as an extrovert who, by the way, up until 2019, drove 30,000 miles a year to find audiences.
Really?
And I'm just so grateful that Randy called me because now we got 15,000 people on here listening to me talk. And so I need that little dot in front of me. I need this as a replacement for what we have not been able to do. But now that we're moving forward, maybe I'll find opportunities to go meet real people. Yeah, I'm with you, buddy. Both of us, find different ways to deal with this transition that we're in. And the introverts, as you said, appreciate it because it's easier, and the extroverts struggle with it. Randy?
Yeah, one of the comments in the chat dealt with energy and whether you're an extrovert or introvert. It's about how we get energy. And I think I heard you talking ahead of time, Kenneth, before we went live, or maybe it was Teddy. Kenneth, I think it might have been you talking about, you guys were chatting about when you engage with somebody who is what I'll call an over-the-top extrovert, and it just wears you out having to carry on. And I don't know, I'm a bit of a chameleon, I suppose. I don't know, introvert, extrovert, extrovert. I lean toward that for sure. But even I sense that as an extrovert, because I know some people that when I talk to them, I'm tired. I just now am more tired thinking about, there are a handful of people, Teddy, and these people, we run in the same circles, that I don't even want to talk to them because my shoulders are slumping, man. Give me.
We have a family member. We actually came back from Atlanta. She would not stop talking.
Yeah.
And we knew she wouldn't stop talking going in, and it is tiring. And it's like, can you come up for air, please? Yeah. Hey, listen, folks, if you have questions for Kenneth, comments, questions, put them in the chat. We'll try to work those in. One other comment came in about how to make cold call intro on LinkedIn. So I'm not sure exactly. I assume that's it. Okay, I want to connect to somebody. I want to get to know them. They don't know me. We don't have any connections in common.
I'm guessing that's the cold call.
Yeah,
Is that-
I think
yeah.
I think an introvert may be more hesitant to put that first step out there. And I also think that an extrovert who is not coached in how to do it appropriately may put the first step out there and do it wrong. Kenneth, what do you think?
Well, I think,
Yeah.
and this is, I can totally relate to this. First of all, when I started on LinkedIn, the first people I connected with were family and friends because I knew they would accept my connection requests. And then
Most
when I
of
went
them.
to know what?
Most of them.
Most of them, right?
Most of them.
And then as I would attend different networking events, and this was in person, again, I had that frame of reference. But you want to personalize the connection request, not, you know, with something specific. Like if someone connects with me today and they mention that we were on this show together, I have a frame of reference. But the hardest part of being an introvert connecting is the fear of rejection. This person is going to reject me. Why do I want to put myself out there? I'm going to come off as such a fool. And my answer to that is you've got nothing to lose. I mean, really, what's the worst thing that happens? And I think the challenge that I bring to my other introvert friends is connect with people you want to know. Find someone you really want to connect with that's out of your comfort zone and give it a shot. Because what's the worst thing that happens? And the answer is basically you're no worse off than you were before. And these are the mindset things you have to think about as an introvert. You know, it's a fear of failure. Yeah, some people are not going to accept a connection request, and some people will move on, but you've got nothing to lose by trying.
Yeah.
Hey, what about to kind of pivot just a bit about, okay, job hunt and the whole rejection thing. And I know we're going to get into imposter syndrome, I think, later on. So that's a fascinating topic. But I'm wondering, from your experience, Kenneth, introvert versus extrovert, and let's say there are 10 gotta haves in the job posting.
Right.
Is the introvert more hesitant to apply unless they have them all, kind of a thing, where the extrovert says, hey man, I can get it done, boom, I'm on it. And they may only have 4 or 5 of them. They're like, yeah, I'm on it. Do you find that that fear of failure or rejection kind of pivots also into the job application process and deciding what ones to apply to based on what your background?
I think to some extent, I think most introverts, again, this is a whole category. So there's different levels of introverts. I think the mindset is if you see a job spec and if you don't have all the things on there, you know, it's like you're not going to apply because you don't have all the things on there. But if you think about it, that job spec is a wish list and it may be written about a previous job or as a guess. I mean, if you think about it, the person writing that job spec is no different than you, but they just have a job, got nothing to lose. But an extrovert's going to say, what do I got to lose? You know, I'm going to do it. But it's a confidence thing as much as anything else. You know, introverts, to some extent, we don't always feel confident about ourselves. We're afraid, whether it's to post on LinkedIn or afraid to make a call, because we just are afraid of what could happen. I mean, it's not like you're going to be struck down by lightning. Let's say someone hangs up. Okay. So what? I mean, it's sad but even from a job search, you get rejected, you move on. You know, you don't fester. I mean, there's no benefit to it.
My first wife rejected me repeatedly. And finally she relented, you know, and so I let her out of the closet. So just a joke. 44 years later, she's still happy with me, and she was my first wife. Hey, you know, but Kenneth, I'm with you. I think this is a great conversation because it's really making me think about introvert and extrovert. I think that, and for many of us, maybe it's some other symptom or some other, you know, issue. But I think all of us have, even those extroverts, have that hesitancy to do something that they haven't done before, that hesitancy to reach out to someone new. But as you said, and one of the statements you said, nobody's ever, you know, been struck down by lightning. I use this phrase: I don't know anybody who has ever been shot at for networking in the right way. I have to add that little piece on the end there. So yeah. Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about it for a little bit. This whole networking thing. I mean, introverts struggle with, you know, showing up in crowds. They struggle, you know, putting down their biscuit and shaking hands with some people. talk about that a little bit. How, why is it so hard for them? And, maybe there's some ways that they can overcome this.
Well, one of the things we talked about, and I think I mentioned it, is the idea of having a wingman or wing woman, which is basically bringing someone to a networking event, whether it's a friend or another person. And you start out by talking, you go to the event with this person and you guys have a conversation, or the two women or whatever. And then someone comes over and sees the two of you talking. So they're going to be part of the conversation. Becomes an icebreaker. And it's about perception. I used to go to networking events and I would make sure I was going to go with someone else who was an extrovert or someone who was a little bit different than me. But the idea was I wasn't alone, because the first time I went, I'd be that wallpaper on the wall. I'd be so afraid. What am I doing? What happens if I have something to drink and I spill it on myself? Or what happens if I eat something and get a little bit of a mess? And you talk to someone else and it puts you at ease. So I think that's a big part of it. And also what worked for me also is not staying for the entire event. There's nothing wrong leaving after half an hour, and if that's all you can take. And it's a little different now also that we're doing in person, not doing as much in-person networking. But I would challenge everyone here to go to an event sometime, even if it's and take someone with you if you're not sure, and just give it a shot. You'll be surprised how easy it becomes.
Yeah. Hey, but do me a favor, Kenneth. Don't leave at 12:30. I need you to hang around a little longer, buddy. But here's the other thing that introverts do, Kenneth, and you've probably seen this, maybe done it, but at least seen it. They show up at an event with their wingman and they never let go of them. They never walk away. And that, I'll tell you, one of the things that I've learned to do when someone shows up and they're a buddy of mine and they start chit chatting, I want them to say hi. I want them to tell me what's going on. But then what I do for them, and some of them appreciate it, some don't, but then later they do, I'll look around the room and go, hey, Randy, Kenneth is over there. Go say hi to him, man. I think you and him could have a good conversation.
Yeah,
if you don't let go, then you never grow.
Well, my friend did that to me the first time. He actually let me go. He said, I'm going to go get something to eat. And I'm like thinking to myself, you're leaving me alone. Oh my God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And someone came up to me and I was freaking out. I was like, I don't know this person from a hole in the wall, but we just started talking. And it turns out, this is years later, we're good friends. But at the time, I didn't know him. And that's what happens at times. I mean, my best friend did me a service, although at the time I was really upset. And sometimes that's what you have to do. It's like, my whole thing as an introvert is I say, jump in the water is fine. Think about when you go swimming. You put your toe in the water, it's cold. You're going to then put your whole foot in the water. Then you're going to put your body in, and then you feel better. And that's kind of how introverts are in networking. I'm going to do it little by little, feel comfortable with that, and then do more.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and I've done this too, Teddy, and we're pretty similar. And also occasionally our professional center would host different events, group events. And there'd be introverts and you can kind of tell their arms are folded. They're off to the side. They're kind of, maybe chit chatting to the one other person they know, kind of a thing. And what's that, Teddy? Teddy's off.
Hide, man. They're over here hiding.
He's hiding over there. And what I'll do, because I'm kind of the host of the event, I guess, so that's maybe a different role, but I would do this anyway. And I would say, hey, let me introduce you to so-and-so. And I would walk with this introvert to a person, and I would conduct the introduction and encourage them to start talking. And as they began to chat a little bit, then I would exit, but I would tee it up versus saying, hey, go talk to Teddy over there. I'll walk with you and start that conversation. And that seems to work okay. I don't know your thoughts on that. Just somebody that can kind of grease the skids a little bit and make it a little easier to get into that conversation.
I think it helps a lot, because when I started going to other events, I had a person that introduced me to other people,
Right.
And that helped. And I think part of it is a self-worth thing. I didn't think I, in the beginning, was really worthy of being introduced to like these great speakers and these great people. And what I found out in time was that they were just as introverted as me, and they didn't know how to actually take the first step. It's kind of like when you're going to your first dance in middle school or whatever, and you're afraid, like, make the first move, and you don't realize that everyone else in high school is afraid to make the first move too, and you all just sit there. And networking is kind of like dating to some extent. It's a social gathering, and you learn from experience and you accept it. And I think that's one of the reasons I love LinkedIn so much, is because if I choose to, I can sit down and think about what I'm going to say, and I can think about it. And if I don't want to do anything else, I can just comment on other people's posts. And if I don't feel like showing up, I won't show up. But I have a certain level of control about that.
There's a lady in the audience who's experienced this that I do to some people who I think are introverts. That is, I throw down a challenge for them. I mean, I also do some career coaching on the side, and as pro bono work. And I like to throw down a challenge. I don't just say, look, it's not a big deal, don't worry about it, go do it. What I do is I go, here is a challenge for you. Go to this store, go to this place, meet this person, knock on the door and say hello. I often will say this, tell them that I sent you. Now, I do that only when I can do that. I wouldn't tell somebody to, knock on the door at the FBI and tell them that Teddy Burriss sent you. But, go meet someone that I know. Just walk up there and say, Teddy told me to say hi to you. And then do this. Tomorrow when we talk, next week when we talk, I want to know what it felt like. Not how did it turn out? What did it feel like?
One of the things which one of my contacts says is sometimes at an event, say, my friend had a question that I'd love to ask. Now that friend is actually you, but you're asking it on behalf of the friend.
Yeah.
And it becomes a little bit easier to do that, or I have someone, you take the focus off yourself, and that kind of helps as another, type of icebreaker.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you got to remember, this is the thing I say to people when they're networking, and introvert or extrovert. And I got to remind myself this for both of us, we are the same. We are two humans having conversations. There really is not, and I don't care if that person is the most sophisticated business leader in my community. That person is no different than me. We are both human beings. We just do different stuff. And when you have as an introvert, and you have a really good conversation with someone that you thought was put their britches on different than you do, and you go, oh my God, that person is so cool. And the reality is most people you network with are just like that. Yeah.
And that brings up the whole imposter syndrome thing, which we were talking about before.
I led to that, didn't I? I did good, didn't I?
Yes, you did. Perfect. I mean, what that basically means is you're afraid of putting something out there because of how it's going to be perceived. What do I know about this? What gives me the right to post something out there? What's going to happen if I get, torn apart? And my answer to that is you just are putting a block in front of you. What I did on LinkedIn for the first time is I just commented on posts that I thought were relevant to me, or I would see an article. I think everyone is afraid, and this is the thing, extroverts have the same fear, imposter syndrome. They absolutely do, but they just do a better job of hiding it, if you will. We're human, we're all human beings, and we're afraid of perception, especially with social media. So once you get past that and you realize what you have is just as valuable to say as someone else, just because you are not Bezos or Gates or someone else, doesn't matter. Yeah. You have the same relevance as anyone else. And once you feel that way about yourself, that's a big part of it.
Yeah. It starts, you have to work on your self-perception. Because until you can get a handle on feeling good about who you are in the space that you are in today, which may be a different space tomorrow, but you gotta believe in yourself. And well, that was probably one of the first things I learned when I started studying Dale Carnegie. If you don't believe in yourself, no one else will, and it will become a much harder journey. So start there. And you're getting far greater value. Hey, it's almost the bottom of the hour. We'll do the 30-minute break. You're on Lunch Conversations with Randy and Teddy. Our special guest is Kenneth Lang, and Lunch Conversations with Randy and Teddy is supported in part by the Elder Law Firm. I love this statement. You've heard me say it, all of you who show up every week. Who's important to you and how you plan to honor your responsibilities to them is also important to the Elder Law Firm. So if you know someone who needs estate planning or trust planning or elder care planning, reach out to the elder law firm in Greensboro, North Carolina, 336-396-4551, or ask me for an introduction to them and I'll make an introduction for you. But you got to remember this, Randy Wooden sent you them. Yeah. So, Kenneth,
Hey,
this is good. Randy?
Yeah, Kenneth, and I know you guys have some other things you're going to want to cover, but I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, and so we can work this in, doesn't have to be right now, but wanted to mention it while I was thinking about it. You used the term first date a while back, and that unnerving feeling of rejection of what to say and when to say and how to act and all that stuff. Well, I compare job hunting and interviewing to sports and dating. Sports, because we try to practice good habits so that when we're in the game, we're executing things that we've already worked on. So we've practiced. And the dating aspect, because it's the compatibility issue. Do I like this person? Do I feel comfortable around them? Can I see them fitting in here? It's that culture fit. And I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about, okay, now I'm on my first date, meaning I've got an interview, and gosh, I'm going to be nervous. I'm uncertain of this, that, and the other. So I want to make sure that we cover some tips for introverts as it relates to the interview process. And I'll throw it back to Teddy, but just a quick comment on networking.
Yeah.
Some of the best conversationalists are those who ask questions and listen.
Yeah.
And introverts do a better job of that than do extroverts. Extroverts want to talk about them and talk, like I'm doing right now. But the conversationalist will ask a question and listen.
Yeah.
Teddy, I know you've talked that, and we've had other guests on that said the same thing.
Yep.
So introverts play a critical role and an important role in conversation. So if you feel like you're an introvert, don't take a back seat. It's a big world, and thank goodness for introverts because they help balance the extroverts and the crowd. Throw it back to Teddy, but I do want to work in that interview piece
Sure,
at some point. So,
we got time to pull it out. Hey, by the way, Randy, you know how to nail a really good interview? You know how to be really good at networking? I'll tell you, man, I know you're waiting for the answer. You need to do it the same way I did it for that first date. You got to have your special shirt. You gotta have your special shirt.
Man. You mean a clean one? It's like a clean shirt.
Clean too, but it's got. Look, my first date with my first wife, current wife, my first date with her, I had this satin shirt with a huge eagle design on it.
Wow.
I had everything I needed to begin with, but that shirt took it over the edge.
Got the Aqua Velva or the Brute cologne on.
How do you know, man? Were you there?
Sound like something out of a Springsteen song, singing about the boys in Jersey. Yeah. So, and I say that because that's where Kenneth, and I was born in Jersey, Kenneth, so I can get away with that too. I was born in Trenton.
That's all right. We just saw Springsteen a couple weeks ago, actually.
Oh, did you? Yeah.
Well, he surprised us at the Paul McCartney concert.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was on stage with him. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah. But I also don't like Springsteen a lot, honestly. I'm probably one of the few.
That's sacrilege, dude. You're from Jersey. How can you say that?
Very easily.
I'm with you. All right, let's get back on topic here, Teddy. Right, so what are we talking about next?
And Dean wants to know where to buy those shirts, and we're going to put those on YouTube once we get a manufacturer to make them. So let's go play with that imposter syndrome again.
Yeah.
I mean, what are some other ideas that people can use, before they go to that first interview, before they have that first screening, so that they overcome their imposter syndrome? Any other thoughts?
Well, I like to have what I call a job search posse. I have 3 or 4 people that you work with and trust, and you do role-playing interviews, you talk to each other, and you brainstorm. And I think going it alone, that was hard for me the first time. And as I was in job searches, I have been many times, I've reached out. I have 2 or 3 people that I just talk with. It might have been a cup of coffee at a Panera back in the day, but it might be a phone call. And you kind of, it's different than family. And it's so important to have an accountability group, whether it's a networking group or something else. And then I would say, if you look at things as not and you look at an interview or anything else as a conversation. One of the things I found out from talking to recruiters is that interviewers are more scared than you are. They're more worried about an interview than the job seeker is, because if they make the wrong mistake, it's their head on the wall. It's their, they're going to have to deal with the what happens.
Yeah.
So you want to think about it as a conversation. Everything is a conversation. I mean, when my first date, as bad as I was at talking to people, it was a conversation, and we talked about things that had nothing to do. We talked about, and this is good date me, we talked about favorite movies and things, and we were so excited when we saw Batman on color TV and all that stuff. And as you got older, you just talk about things you have in common. And whether it's sports or entertainment or life, it helps, because it's about building a relationship.
Yeah. It's two humans having a conversation.
Absolutely.
Dale Carnegie, one of his principles, by the way, if you haven't figured out, there are a couple different things that I've gone through in life that have had a huge impact on me. And Dale Carnegie, studying Dale Carnegie, not just reading the book or one of his books, made a huge impact on my life. And one of the things that he said is talk in terms of the other person's interest. Yep. Now, I add to that, because I take liberty with everything that I read and figure out how I apply it to my life. I add to that until they give you permission to talk about yourself.
Another introvert tip I've come to learn: when someone is talking, ask them, can you repeat what you just said? Can you just, and it gives you a second to kind of think about what your answer is, instead of instead of them waiting to talk to you. Just give yourself a second. And that's kind of an easy kind of hint, because I've had to do that many times, especially with extroverts on calls like this. I mean, we've been on Zoom calls for a while now, and I'll be on the call, and all of a sudden someone is talking. And I'm like, can you stop for a second, please? I know it's only 15 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever it is, but geez, I mean, give me a chance to breathe. And I've just learned, I said, would you mind repeating yourself, or just something? You want to be able to be honest and just respectful.
There's another philosophy that someone taught me years ago, and that is, as an introvert or as an extrovert, you don't need to show up and be the star. You don't need to show up and be the leader of the pack in the conversation. But if you, as we've just talked about, if you ask questions, you can make the other person, who may be an extrovert and loves telling great stories, you can make the other person the star, and that will make them feel better about you because you gave them the platform to talk. So
well, I did that with an extrovert actually on LinkedIn. There was an extrovert who I met at a networking thing, and I'm an introvert. I said, let's create an introvert extrovert conversation post. I'm yin, you're yang. So we did that every once in a while. And we talked about the perception from two different sides in the same post. Yeah. And it was just a fun thing to do. It's like, you'll talk, I'll talk. And I did it in large part just to kind of like get out of my shell. I'm like, you can do all the work, but at the same time, this person did not really know how to network that well. They knew how to talk a lot. They really didn't get the networking part. So it became a logical thing to do. So find an extrovert online. Yep. Start posting with them. Start sharing with them. You can never tell where it's going to go.
I like your idea of having a posse, having a tribe, a small group of people, and maybe it's an accountability group. Maybe it's just a wall to bounce, a live wall to bounce ideas off of, and we can all have that. I mean, I have that. I know for a fact that there are 3 people I can call right now and say, I'm working on this. I need your help to figure it out. I'm practicing this, experimenting this, and they'll do it. And I'm with you, Kenneth, Randy, and I know this, be important for job seekers, critical for job seekers to have that group of people. But I think business professionals should have that as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you're a single proprietor and you're going to go to an event with lots of others there, bring one of your friends along that's also either a business person or someone in your industry to be there, because it's very, very overwhelming when you go into someplace for the first time. And you want to think about the value proposition that you have, I think a lot of us as small business owners think to themselves, well, how am I going to sell what I have? What makes me special? And I think what makes everyone special is the person that you are. You know, there are a lot of people who do the same thing, but you want to bring a personal touch to it. And it's not always easy. Again, I'm saying this after having done this for 10, 15 years. I spent many years struggling with this, and you have your failures along the way. I will say this, you learn more from your failures than you do from your successes.
Yep.
If you have that mindset also, you know, everything's a learning opportunity.
You want to pull some questions out of the chat?
Sure.
Well, I can, but I guess a quick observation to the fear of failure. And I think what happens too often is that people go for the throat too soon.
Mhm.
In other words, I haven't built up a rapport with you. You don't necessarily know, like, and trust me. And next thing I know, you're shoving your business card in my face and you're asking me for business or who I know that might need your widgets. And I'm going, yeah, I'm going to reject you.
That's the
because you
mindset
deserve
that-
it.
But
Dadgummit.
that's the mindset that a lot of salespeople like are told to do.
Right. But instead, building that rapport, it's easy. I shouldn't say easy. That should be your first step, would be to establish some level of rapport, because people, again, they buy and do business with people they know, like, and trust for the most part. And so build that rapport. Same thing on LinkedIn. How many times you ever get a request to connect, and next thing you know, you get this 6-paragraph sales pitch 5 minutes later that's canned, and you're going, oh, you guys would say this guy needs my help.
Well, I've actually I've attended sessions in these places that do this, and I learned what they do, and I've said to them, why?
The
They
numbers.
don't have any, I mean, what?
It's a numbers game. They don't care.
Oh, I'm being facetious.
I
mean,
know. I'm with you.
It's throw spaghetti against the wall and see what sticks. And I don't care if most of it doesn't stick. I'm gonna for the one that sticks. You know, it doesn't make it right, but it's what they do.
Yeah. You know, one of the questions somebody put in here, and I'll go back. Remember, Cindy Martin was on the show, Teddy, she's been on 3 times in the past. And one of the times she talked about a method, and I want to say it's HOME, HOME, but I forget what the E stands for, as far as networking events. And because one of the questions was, how do you find out what a stranger's interest or hobbies might be? And the acronym HOME, and I'm kind of making this up, Cindy, so forgive me if you're watching this now or later. The H is hobbies. So when you talk to somebody, so what do you do for fun? The O would be your occupation. What kind of work do you do? The M is your motivation, your why. What got you started doing this? And then the E, I don't know what it is, but I'm going to say it's family. Tell me about your family. I know that's not. I know that's. Is it education?
School. What school did you go to?
Where'd you go to school? Somewhere in there ought to be families. But anyway, point being is structure. Dean, you ask about hobbies and interest, and to me, it's structure. If I'm nervous or I don't feel like I can pull this off in a ad lib kind of a way, just like with interview questions, I have some silly acronyms I won't go into now, but ways to help keep your mind focused on your objectives. And if hobbies or interest is an objective, just keep that home in mind, and you'll know you can ask about somebody's work, their hobbies. What do you do for fun? Where'd you go to school? Why do you do what you do? And people, I think, generally like to talk. Even introverts like to talk about themselves if they're asked.
Yeah,
Sure.
Yeah, Kenneth, what's your process for your tactic to figuring out someone that you're about ready to talk with, so you know a little bit more about them first?
Well, what I would try to do, and this is especially true with events, I try to look the people up on LinkedIn. I try to do some research on them just to get a little bit of an idea about them. I mean, it's easier now more than ever. You know, if I'm going to go to an event like our chamber, I may look up the company to have a starting point, because as an introvert, I need to have a scripted plan. I need to really think about what I'm going to say, not so I'm doing it verbatim, but I just need to have a comfort level. I can't speak off the cuff. I mean, I can with you guys because we're talking, but it's very hard to speak off the cuff. Sometimes you need to have some planned questions, some planned strategies. And part of that is also knowing when it's okay to walk away. Just because you're there, not every relationship or every conversation is going to be really beneficial. Mm-hmm. And it's okay to stay or to kind of figure out a way to leave a conversation. I mean, as an introvert, I've been overwhelmed by so many conversations and I just have to leave. I'm tired. I just don't want to be there. Mom, get me out of here sort of thing. And, that it's
Yeah.
just the way it is. And people don't know that they're doing that sometimes. So sometimes it becomes an education, because you have to be able to be somewhat honest. I mean, not brutally honest, but at the same time, people are taught to do things a certain way. Networking is a lifelong thing. It doesn't just happen when you're looking for a job, but I would call networking also conversations. I think the word is a little bit overwhelming. It's about having conversations.
Yeah.
It's not about networking. It's about talking to people. If you
Yeah.
think about it that way, I think it makes it a little bit easier.
I love the accent, man. Talking about people. See,
Yeah.
Well,
it's not like I was born in Jersey. A lot of family across the Delaware River in Lambertville. Pennsylvania, Lambertville, and Philly, and all that area. And you sound like my cousins. So
Well,
love it.
I mean,
Love it.
Even here in New Jersey, we have our inside jokes that we will say at events. I mean, things that we only talk about in New Jersey, like the New Jersey shore is down the shore. It's not
Sure. Yeah.
and things like that. And we have a mindset here. Now, when I talk to people from all over, when I'm going to Boston, it's not always Boston, but it's the accent. But we're all people. When I was in the South and I just came from Atlanta, it's a different way of life, but we're all people. My goodness.
Yeah.
Here are two things that you brought to mind when you were talking, Kenneth. The first one is, so you get into a networking group, networking conversation, you walk in, you got your biscuit, and you got your grape knee high, and you walk into a group of 6 or 8 people, and all of a sudden or soon thereafter, you discover, I don't want to be in this conversation. For whatever reason, I don't want to be in this conversation. You could just simply walk away. That may not be the most polite thing to do. Okay. So what I've learned, one of my tactics is this, to say, hey guys, great to see you. Great conversation. I just realized I promised my boss, I promised myself that I would say hi to Randy. He's right over there. I've got to get him before he leaves. See you later.
Or my friend wants this, or my friend wants that. It's just, there's nothing wrong with that as long as you do it the right way, because otherwise you're going to be stuck in a situation where you don't want to be. And it's going to make it even worse. And you also don't know how many people in that conversation feel the same way as you.
Yeah. Until you start walking away, they go, I want to say hi to Randy too. Here's the other one. This is the conversation was about how to discover more about the person before you show up to have a conversation with them. Now, Kenneth, I'm right there with you, man. First place I go is LinkedIn, but I don't stop there. I go look for them on TikTok. I go look for them on Instagram. I go look for them on Facebook. I do a Google search for Kenneth Lang and see what comes up. Yet I still allowed you to come to the show.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, teasing, buddy. But look, there's no reason you can't use any tool at your disposal to learn more about that person. And people go, isn't that kind of like personal, Teddy, to look at them on Instagram and Facebook? No. If it's public, they made a decision to make it public. Now, you don't want to use it inappropriately, like they posted something about my wife ran off with my dog and I'm really upset. And you don't want to maybe bring that conversation up. Maybe they shouldn't have posted that, but absolutely use all of the resources available to you to learn more about that person before you sit down with them. Yeah.
Definitely.
Hey, can we do some of the interview tips? Because I know that's something that I actually have had some clients ask about that. And I could talk all day long about interviewing, but I'd rather hear it from an expert. So, and you're in the seat, right? You are the expert seat today and an introvert. So you're an introvert. You show up and go. What are some tips for guys like you to overcome fear, concern, and to do better on the interview itself? How do we do that?
The more research you can do in advance, the better.
Okay.
You want to come in with some very open-ended questions.
What's an open-ended question, just for people that may
an open-ended question? Well, again, there's different types. So I might say, because I know I've gotten to the place where I'm being interviewed already, I would say, what are the top 2 or 3 things you need me to do to hit the ground running? Give me an idea. I mean, forget the job spec for a moment. What are the main things you need me to do right away? And then I can use that as an opportunity to talk about how I can solve your problem. And that's a big thing. And then I might also ask, out of curiosity, is this a new position or is this a position that's being built? And can you tell me a little bit more about, how you came to the decision to fill this position? You want to, you're going in for a job interview with the whole idea about they want me, but they've seen your resume. They don't need to see your resume again. You want to tell them about yourself. And introverts have, in some cases, a very hard time talking about themselves.
Okay.
I mean, so you want to be, and you want to talk and say, well, by the way, and I'll say this to the person behind me, how long have you been at the company? What do you like most about the company? What are the things, let them talk about themselves. Let them put the light on them, because it also means that there's less time for them to talk to you, which is kind of the hidden agenda. You want to make it as much about them as possible. And you want to know, how long have you been there? What are you looking to do in the next few years, or just things like that. Just be very open-ended. And if you are going for a company, look up the company and say, I read about this in the paper about this. This is something you're working on. It's about, I used to be a newspaper reporter, which probably seems a little bit weird as an introvert.
Yeah.
But I was the type, I would go to meetings, and I liked to write, but it was scary for me to actually go up and talk to people. But I learned how to do it, because what I found out is that they were just people like me. And when you finish the interview and they say, do you have any more questions? You make sure you have questions. And one of the questions I always like to say is ask, well, is there anything else about my background that you want me to clarify? Because you want to make sure that, and this is even true as a business owner, if there's something that you haven't hit on, you want to leave with making sure you're in a good place with them.
Yeah.
And a lot of this is not just interviewing, but it's job search, but about businesses. I have a client that I want to work with, or that is interviewing me, and I'm going to interview them because it has to be a good fit for both of us. And it's okay for it not to be a good fit, because I want to make sure that it makes sense for both of us.
Yeah.
So those are some of the tips I'd recommend.
One of the comments.
Go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, Dean had a comment, and I think he, paraphrase here. I think he understands that he needs to, and he's a recruiter, isn't he? I think, anyway, I'm not certain, but anyway, but it's one thing to keep asking the questions of the interviewer, and that makes excellent sense.
Mhm.
But I think his question then becomes, how do you sell yourself? What are things that you say when let's say introverts are not one to blow their own horn or toot their own
You
horn?
talk about specific things you've done in your past, very tangible things, not just I worked 5 years for the company.
Yeah.
Well, what project that you did at that company that you're most proud of? What are the things you've done, things that are not on your resume? What initiatives? What did you do those to help the company out? And then say, based on that, that's how I can help your company out. I did A, B, and C for my previous employer, and I will bring those skills to your company, and kind of paraphrase that, because when you're going on an interview, they don't want to know about your past. They want to know what's in it for me.
Yeah.
Why would I want to hire you over someone else? I mean, I can get 10 people with the same experience. So the trick is to go for very specific things you've done, and then figure out the best way that they will lend themselves to your new company. And it's even more challenging if it's from one industry to the other. What I would never do is focus on the gaps in your resume. We've all had them. My goodness, recruiters have had them too. So there's no sense dwelling on them. I mean, it's a fact of life. The person interviewing could have had a job gap too.
Yeah.
And I think that's the other thing job seekers do, is they put up all these hurdles. You're not too old, you're not too young, you've been out of work, so what? I mean, easier said than done, but you're not the only one.
Kenneth, Randy, one of the things that I will add to this whole discussion about how do introverts do better at interview is these ideas are very practical ideas, but you'll never do them. You will never do them unless you practice them. You've got to practice answering questions. You've got to practice asking questions. You've got to practice telling relevant stories. If you're not going to practice them, I'm telling you, you're going to go into your interview and you're going to become a puddle of mud. You're not going to know how to do it. You're going to walk out there and you're going to be embarrassed with yourself because you did not practice.
I love the comment, practicing in the mirror. You want to practice also with someone else, who's going to ask the tough questions of you. You want to role play. This does not come easily the first time. you know, I've been doing it for years, but I still freeze up at times, and it's okay to freeze up. It's okay to exhale for a second and say, can you repeat the question, or let me think about it. No one expects a rapid fire response.
One of the things too, and I know we're going to get a little shorter on time here, especially if they ask you what is a weakness or something you're working on. And what I tell them is to state the obvious, and then basically tell them what you're not, then tell them what you are. It's an old sales tactic.
Yeah.
And you can say it with a smile, because they can see that A, you're nervous, B, you're reserved, you're an introvert. So you can say, look, if you're looking for somebody to be your company spokesman, to be in front of the camera and behind the microphone and all, I'm not your guy. But if what you're looking for is somebody who is when they fill in the blank, whatever they need, detail oriented, highly focused, that kind of a thing, that's me. And because they can see that, they'll be able to sense that you're not the plaid. This isn't plaid, Teddy. No, it's not. It doesn't have red in it. Not the plaid suit, slap you on the back. Hey, you can get this cream puff for only $1.99 a month kind of guy. I'm what I'll call the adult in the room. I'm the one who's going to keep things focused. And so you don't want to come and say that, but that's, I think, what I would like to see from an introvert is to say, I am what I am, and I'm comfortable in my own skin. This is the value I can bring to an organization.
Well,
and I'm not going to blow
that's
smoke
how
up
we
your.
started it. You have to feel comfortable with who you are.
You bet.
I'm never going to be an extrovert, and that's okay. That's absolutely okay. Once you feel good about yourself, then everything will eventually come into play. And none of these things we're talking about they may not happen overnight. They may not happen the first time. But the more you do these things, the better and easier it does become.
Kenneth, this is good. We could keep this conversation going on in lots of different ways.
I'm sure.
Really appreciate you coming in and joining us today. Thank you very much. Randy, let's. Do you have a story in this from regarding today or not?
I just make one up in that because I never have it. I don't have a story, but what I will say is this: we talk about diversity a lot today. And when we think diversity, typically we think of race, gender, and then the list goes on. But those are the two, it's everything from age to where you're from, to your religion, all kinds of things. But something that we may not pay as much attention to is diversity of what I'll call personality.
Yeah.
And if there's a team full of Teddies, we need to counterbalance that. Right. And so maybe a thought would be for us to know ourselves. And if there are assessments that we can take, whether it's Myers-Briggs or other ones, so that we have a firm understanding of our own self, that emotional intelligence, and then we can speak to that during the interview and demonstrate the value that somebody who may not be the extroverted kind of guy, that kind of value can add to the diversity and ultimately profitability of a company. Yeah. I rest my case.
But before we end the call, everyone on this call should connect with each other. I don't know if you guys save the chat for the thousands of people here, but you want to connect with each other as a follow-up because you have that first frame of reference. You've been here together on this call.
Yep.
Yeah. Anywhere you get a chance, meet new people and say hello to them and engage with them. Absolutely. Sure. And the only people you can see in the chat are the people who engaged in the chat. You can't see the rest of the audience, which is one reason why I should start encouraging you all to say hello in the chat so people can discover your name. And Randy and I are absolutely happy and fine with you sharing your LinkedIn profile URL, your Facebook, your Twitter, your Instagram, not your Tinder. Please, Todd, don't do that ever again. Hey, here's my quick little story.
Yep.
I know the difference between introverts and extroverts. And I know that I am an extrovert, and I know I love to get the microphone in front of me anytime I can. I love to keep talking as much as I can. Sometimes I talk way too fast. I know I need to slow down when I'm talking. As an extrovert, you need to understand that about yourself. I need to understand when is enough. And often it's way earlier than you really think it is. So, Kenneth, thanks a lot. Randy, who's our special guest next week, dude?
Yeah, Lita is coming back to visit us. Lita Citron. She is a branding specialist, your personal brand. She's very active in the military, helping folks transition from there. But listen, we've all made mistakes, and depending on how large our profile and following might be, those mistakes can be magnified, whether you're a politician, an actor, somebody in the news, or just a business person who's made some bad choices, whatever. And so whether it's repairing your brand or creating a brand on social media and in your professional life, Lita is an expert. I think she's out in Colorado, but she's been on our show before, and she'll be back in coming up next week on the 13th at 11:55. So we hope you can join us live.
So, hey, thank you to everybody. Thank you to our audience. We had a highly connected audience. We held them throughout the whole conversation on live as well as on LinkedIn. Kenneth, again, thanks a lot, buddy, for showing up. Let's say hi another time. Again, you're on Lunch Conversations with Randy and Teddy. The Elder Law Firm is one of our sponsors, and we're grateful for their help. Everybody have a great rest of the week. See you next week.
Go Sox. There you go.